Good morning, everybody. Mark from the Albany Business Centre, as always, with a live from the pod today. Today we've got Anastasia, the amazing Anastasia from South Coast Insurance Brokers, who helps us out with our business insurance, but also helps out heaps of small businesses around the region as well. Got a heap of questions for you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me here.
I know it's scary, but don't worry, they don't bite.
Yeah, so I think we're safe.
We'll be safe today. We'll be safe today. We're not going to ramble on too much today because we've got heaps of questions. But yeah, Anastasia's going to be here for next week. Oh no, week after. 28th, end of this month, end of October, as always, for the WA Small Business Day here at the Albany Business Centre, 10 till 2. She's going to be here, so if you've got any questions, bring them along as well if you want to talk to Anastasia face to face. But today we've got a heap of questions which have come in, and I'm going to start straight away, Anastasia, with the first one, which says, what is business insurance and why is it essential for my small business?
Yeah, so I guess there's two parts to this, which is a business insurance policy itself is actually a package or a bundle of a bunch of smaller covers, or otherwise you can think of insurance for businesses, which is quite an open-ended possibility of what that could be, depending on what the business operations are like. But what you typically think of with a business insurance program or package would be your public liability, damage to your contents and stock and your premises, things like theft and equipment breakdown, business interruption, cyber workers comp starts to expand out into the other products.
There's heaps, right?
Heaps, absolutely.
And it can get really confusing, right?
Yeah.
As well, especially for a small business who's like, I've got to have some business insurance, and they might be working from home, and I know we're going to cover what types of insurance later, but the differences between working from home, working on the road, working in the premises, it all differs vastly.
Yeah.
So it can get confusing.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for, is to help
you,
cut through some of that.
That's what you guys do. Okay, can you explain to me then the different types of business insurance and policies for small businesses?
Yeah. So I guess the starting block would be your traditional business package policy, which is your damage to your contents, your stock, your building. Business interruption, if your premises burnt down and you couldn't trade, it protects your income, especially if you've got a business loan or other expenses that you have to keep meeting.
Yeah.
Your public liability, in case you were to injure any of your patrons. Products liability, if any of the goods that you're manufacturing cause injury to someone.
Right.
In that, some packages will be specialised, like a trades package or an office pack. They're the same thing. They might just customise it a little bit for the types of covers that are commonly needed for that industry. Okay. But it is the same.
It's the same. It's all the same but different.
Options, yeah.
It's the same but different.
Yeah.
Okay, so that really does cover some basic stuff, and I think everybody would get that. It's just, and you know as well as I do, being a small business owner, that it comes down to cost and that sort of stuff, and it's really what can I get away with having and what can I not get away with having. So the one I always get asked, when I know it's what's liability insurance and why is it important for me?
Yeah.
Because everybody has to have that, right? Let's be honest, everybody really has to have liability.
Yeah. You don't necessarily legally have to have it, but yeah, it is absolutely a no-brainer to protect you and your assets. Liability insurance doesn't protect anything that you own. It doesn't protect you or your own stuff, but it protects if you, in running your business, cause injury or damage someone else's property.
Right.
And it's really open-ended as to what that could be. If you had a retail shop, maybe it's the slip and fall risk. If you're making products, maybe it's something goes wrong with your product and it injures someone's hand while they're trying to use it. It's that.
Does it cover if like you're a food van or whatever, and then somebody gets food poisoning or something?
Yeah. If they could show that you were negligent for that, and think about it, like if they could take you to court and sue you, that's what your liability insurance is there for.
Right, that's what it covers.
It's a cheap lawyer.
Yeah. and we asked for it for the Small Business Day Expo, for example. All the small businesses have to provide their liability insurance because it covers them when people are around them. If somebody's hiring space here, we ask for that as well because that actually protects us a little bit if there's any damage. So it does really help, guys. Liability insurance is probably the one, as you said, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. As you say, rental agreements, if you're tendering for projects, especially with local governments, you absolutely have to have it.
Yeah, and normally it sounds astronomical amounts. Oh, $10 million worth of public liability insurance. It's not that much when you think about it.
Yeah, it doesn't go far. If a few people are injured in one event, sorry, yeah, if multiple people are injured, $10 million doesn't go far.
No, that's true. That's true. So make sure you've got the best cover you can possibly have. Yeah, cool. Okay, how do I determine the right level of coverage for my business?
Yeah, and this is a hard question because it's so dependent on your personal values and what level of risk you're prepared to take. But I guess you sort of have to take stock of what you've got, what assets you own, what's the impact on your business operations if something would happen to those assets. Are we talking a few $100s that you could, it might hurt to replace, but you could do it yourself? Or is it a few $100,000 in the business, the building that you own, running from? If something happened to those assets, how much is that going to impact you? And the bigger the impact against your business operations and your ability to earn your income, that's what we really need to protect.
So it's kind of calculated risk.
Yeah.
Is what we're saying is determining the right level of coverage for you is your calculated risk. So if you feel that, yeah, I can get away with this level of insurance and go for a lower one, then fine, but that's your risk. Because if something does happen, the rest of it's got to come out of your pocket.
And we can help people make informed decisions on that as well. So you can get the quotes and see, this is what it's going to cost me, this is the excess that I'd be paying if I had a claim. What do those add up to, and how often do I think this might happen?
Yeah.
So, you know, cash in the till, it might cost you a few $100s to insure it, and there's a $200 excess. By the time someone breaks in and takes the cash out of the till, are you really in front if you're paying for that insurance?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What's the point? $200 I've lost.
Yeah. So sometimes smaller things like that, maybe it feels better to put the premium that you would have paid for that aside for that rainy day if it goes wrong.
Yeah.
And think about the bigger assets that are going to have a more important impact on your operations.
Yeah, it's kind of like the health insurance thing at the moment when people are looking at their own personal health insurance and going, well, what is it actually covering versus if I just put that money aside? And that comes down to, again, risk assessment, right? So it's all about my age, my current fitness levels, what I do for a living, yada, yada, yada. And if I do get injured, how much is it going to cost me to essentially get repaired?
Yeah.
Versus, okay, I'll get the health insurance, which will cover that. And it's at risk, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so this is a two-parter. And it was, what types of insurance would you consider for A, food products versus handcrafted products, and B, market stalls versus service line consulting or training? So, I mean, I know that's really, really vast, and I think this person does a lot of different things. Food products versus handcrafted products. I'm gonna guess it's like, could be sandwiches and that sort of stuff versus, I don't know, what, wood, little toys and that sort of stuff. That was my guess. And market stalls, because I'm guessing they sell at the market stall, and service line consultancy and training. So they've got another business, I'm guessing, here.
Yeah. So on the first part of that, the food production versus handcrafted products, it's actually probably the same type of policy.
Okay.
But the emphasis would be on different parts of it. So public liability is actually public and products liability.
Yeah.
And they always come packaged as one thing. You can't really split them off, not for small businesses anyway. So with food production, it might be more about the public liability aspect from where you're selling your food from. Do you have a van or do you have a cafe? So when your customers are coming to your shop, the liability if they're injured just while they're on your premises. Yeah. More so than maybe the food itself. You don't often actually see claims coming out of food too often.
Really? That does surprise me. Well, it doesn't, because I guess that's a good thing, right? Because people are preparing and doing everything correct. Yeah. So there are very, very few claims. But I'd have thought you'd have seen some around, but
not personally.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, good job, guys.
But then on the handcrafted products, so that's more of the products liability side of things. So if that good that you make, whether it's woodworking or if you're making candles or whatever it might be. The product's liability means that if you sell something and later on down the track that injures a person or causes them to be sick, that's the liability of the respondent.
Right, okay, yep.
An extension to that, if you are manufacturing, is a product recall liability cover. So that if you find out down the track that you know there's a fault with your product and you need to get it off the market and get it away from people so that they're safe, it can pick up those costs to help advertise, reach your customers, like so that they know if you have this, you need to come dispose of it or bring it back to us.
Right, gotcha. And that's really important. We do get asked that question quite a bit about what happens if there's a product recall. We also get it on vouchers and that sort of thing as well, where people haven't used vouchers, so they want to transfer them to other people. How can you do that? And I guess that for us, it falls into that bit of advice of a product recall, because it's you're changing essentially the product and service to somebody else, but you're obviously covering, or the insurance is actually covering if something damages that person.
Yeah, and product recall if you need to get it out of the market, and it happens with the car manufacturers, and it might be a faulty airbag and they have to reach all of their customers with that vehicle and get them into a service centre to get it replaced. The liability bit of cover to respond to that and pick up those costs isn't automatic. It's something that if you're a manufacturer you need to ask for.
Yeah, and there's a lot of manufacturers and small manufacturers of products in Great Southern. There really is. I don't know how many use the other. And you're right, everything from candles to toys to all that sort of stuff. And if you have to recall toys, for example, because there's a product fault, might be a button that's loose and somebody could check it, that could cost you thousands to try and recall all of that. That's a big one. What else? Sorry, I interrupted you.
So yeah, and then on to the second part of the question, market stalls versus sort of consulting or training work. Market stalls is still that public and product liability, really. It's just disclosing a different type of activity. Whereas if you're providing consulting or training work, that does sort of broach into a different type of insurance need, which is your professional indemnity insurance. So if you're providing any sort of advice for a fee, that's the policy that will respond to that. If you've given incorrect advice or made an error or an omission in giving your advice, and that leads to financial harm to a third party, a professional indemnity policy is what will respond to that.
Okay, so you're talking financial harm to somebody, and I'm now adding this question in. So let's say there's a software designer, and they're building a website for somebody, but you've actually not done it quite correctly, hasn't been picked up. Would that be your indemnity insurance, which would cover that if there's a problem? I don't know, is it to get it fixed, or is it personal damage, or?
Yeah, so I suppose it depends on what the harm was. And for website designers, there's actually a professional indemnity policy that's specifically for people in the IT fields. So that would be a little bit more niche of a product again. But say someone's published information on your website and they've defamed someone. A professional indemnity policy or an IT professional indemnity policy will respond to that sort of thing.
Okay. So anybody then, so I guess what we're saying here is, if you are a service provider who's giving any sort of advice, whether it be about a website building, whether it be business coaching, whether you need indemnity insurance.
And we have it as well as insurance brokers. If we give incorrect advice, we've got a policy that will help respond to protect our clients.
We've got it as well, just in case we give you guys the wrong information or the not most up-to-date version. So we make sure ours is up to date all the time as well. Brilliant. Okay, so is there anything else between the two of those there, between the market stalls and the service consultancy? No?
That's probably the biggest thing on those activities.
So the person who asked that, I hope that helps. Okay, we got question number 6. Oh my God, we're flying through these this morning. How can business owners save money on insurance premiums without sacrificing coverage?
Yeah, okay. So I suppose getting other quotes.
By the way, I've got a disclaimer. I printed this up for you because whoever wrote this, they actually put, how can I save money, but I don't want to lose my coverage?
Yeah. So I mean, it's check the market.
Yeah.
So you can use a broker like ourselves, or you can jump on the internet.
Mhm.
There's a lot of options out there. If you feel confident that you know what cover you need, or
Yeah.
maybe you've sought advice from a broker in the past and now you're just trying to replicate that. Go and get quotes from other insurance companies and check that you're getting the right value.
Mhm.
It does change year to year, and especially at the moment, premiums are increasing like crazy. So
Yeah,
just
it's,
check your
it's
options.
mad. It is mad at the moment, right? The rate that in premiums are going up.
Yeah. At the moment, particularly for home insurance, is
Yeah.
where we're seeing the most pain.
Why do you think that is?
For us, the insurers that we use are national companies, so they've been exposed to all the floods that have been happening over east.
Yeah.
So I think the cost of claims, especially with the inflation in the building industry and the cost of labour, those claims costs over there are just really blown out, and for the national insurance carriers, that's affecting them here as well.
Yeah, so they're just looking at Australia as a whole rather than the individuals, and that's where we get crucified yet again. That's getting crucified for something.
Before we move on though, the other part of it as well is looking at your risk management and security. So, if you're paying a lot of money for even just theft insurance, maybe you can have an alarm installed at your premises, just little things like that. It might not have a huge impact on the premiums, but each year it'll just save you that little bit.
And that's a really good point. So if you have an alarm fitted, and I know you can't give specifics, right, and specific numbers because everybody's different, but would you say there'd be a kind of rough amount that if you had an alarm fitted versus a non-alarm fitted that you would save on your premium? Would you say a couple $100 ish, or
maybe like 5 to 10%
off
off the cost of theft cover?
Yeah, just by having an alarm fitted.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously you guys need to work out from your own insurances whether it's worth doing, but 5 to 10%.
Like it might take a few years to see the benefit, but then also that allows you to respond quicker if something's happening.
Yeah.
And maybe you can get the police there to interrupt people.
Yeah. And we always make sure our place is alarmed. So all the businesses here are safe and secure, and it's that monitoring system more than anything.
And a deterrent as well. Yeah. It might be enough that someone's might have otherwise been opportunistic and broken a window, but they see that there's an alarm system and they're not gonna stuff around with it.
So definitely recommend that. It's a safety and security thing.
Yeah. And the risk management goes into other aspects as well. It can help with workers' compensation insurance premiums if you've got really good work health and safety programs. If you've got those systems in place, tell your insurer that you've got it.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be something in their system that automatically gives you a discount, but if you go to them and say, hey, my premiums are going up, but we've got all this program in place and this is what we're doing to protect our premises and our staff, they might be like, okay, this is a good customer that we want to keep and give you a discount.
And you can do that. You can actually ask. If you can
get hold of a real person, you can do it.
I do that all the time. I come to you guys and you guys will send me insurance quotes through, and I'm like, come on, this isn't right. Can you go back and ask? And you ask the question, and because of our levels of cover and our loyalty to insurance companies, they'll come back and go, yeah, okay, we can see it and see a bit of a benefit there rather than it just being that tick the box.
Yeah, and it doesn't always work, but you can always try.
Yeah, absolutely. It's worth asking, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so what is a certificate of insurance, and when might a small business need to provide one to clients or partners?
Yeah, okay. So a certificate of insurance is also called a certificate of currency, and it's a piece of paper that says on this day, this person has a valid insurance policy in place for this type of cover, and it acts as proof of that. So it may be a certificate for your public liability insurance that you might need to give to your landlord or to council if you're tendering on a job. It could be for your house insurance and you've got to give it to the bank when you're refinancing. It's just proof that you've got a policy in place, and it will show the amount of cover that you've got and any interested parties that you've noted on the policy.
And that's just, that can be any part of the insurance. That could be public liability, public indemnity, all that sort of stuff. Or is there one way you can just have a certificate which overarches it?
It would be per policy.
Per policy? Okay.
And the only type of policy I'm aware of where they won't give you one should be for management liability insurance. because the insurer doesn't want the general public to know that you have that policy in place.
Oh, really? Why would that be?
To avoid inviting claims being made against the company.
Right, gotcha. Well, there you go. People should have it, but they don't brag about it in that case.
Yeah, just for that specific one.
Yeah, okay. Is there, don't be terrible English. Are there any emerging trends or new insurance products that small business owners should be aware of?
Okay. It's not necessarily new, but I mean, cyber insurance, it feels more and more important these days as almost everything is being done online in some way. That can protect your computer systems from ransomware, or it could be paying invoices to the wrong bank account if it's been intercepted somewhere along the way and the bank account details have been changed.
Which is interesting because we covered that in a workshop. Oh, geez, that was last year. Last year, so that was a cyber securities workshop we worked with Dave from LeapCom, which we did here, and he was talking about that, about the people getting into your invoicing and changing the bank account numbers and then continue to send it on. And the biggest shock for us was that you said, "Oh no, normal insurance doesn't cover that."
No, not at all.
You need
it's a separate policy.
A specific cyber insurance one, which since then we've upped our coverage and we've now got a cyber insurance, cyber cover, which by the way wasn't as expensive as I thought it was going to be. Honestly, I thought it was going to be our public indemnity insurance, again, that sort of cost, but it just wasn't.
Yeah, it could be, depending on what your operations are, what sort of exposure it is, but just get a quote and find out.
Yeah.
And then you can make informed decisions. And that's the biggest thing that I would love to share to people is just get a quote so you can make that decision and know exactly what the numbers are that you're dealing with.
Yeah, and that's whether that would be punch it into the internet yourself, go and see an insurance broker, or just ask somebody, where do I go?
Yeah, or speak to if you've got a friend that works in a similar industry, talk to them about what they're paying.
Yeah.
Just any kind of feedback.
Find out. Yeah. Ask the question. Okay, so cyber insurance, is there anything else really new?
I mean, again, not super new, but management liability insurance, which I mentioned before, that one really protects your business's managers, so the business owner and any other managers that are employed, or a board of directors in a not-for-profit organisation. And it's about how they go about managing and operating the business. So for us, we have to comply with the Corporations Act, and we deal with ASIC and APRA and all these companies or organisations, and there's so many rules to follow. So somewhere along the line, you're probably likely to forget about a rule.
Definitely.
And you could be fined for that. So a management liability policy can cover those fines if they're not uninsurable at law, which some are. There are some fines that you have to pay yourself and you can't insure against. But it does pay for a lawyer to investigate and defend on your behalf. And part of that as well can be like your employment practices liability. If you've got a big team of staff, that might be worth thinking about.
Employment practices. So that covers them for what?
So, say you had a claim being made against you for wrongful dismissal, or workplace harassment, those sort of things.
So then you'd be covered for that one. And you're right, that isn't new, but a lot of that is being brought to the fore nowadays.
Yeah, we're really litigious here in Australia. We're up there pretty close with the United States.
It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing.
No, people want to try it on, and it might be valid as well. But if people think they're owed something from a business, they'll have a go.
Yeah. So we've just got to be careful of that.
Yeah.
Get the right insurance. What are some of the key factors that can lead to gaps in insurance coverage for small business? We spoke about, and how can you avoid that? We spoke about the cyber one, obviously, because a lot of people don't realise that it's not covered. But what else? What other sort of stuff have you found?
Yeah, I mean, as far as leading to gaps, I think a lot of people don't want to dedicate much time to thinking about their insurance.
Oh yeah, because I know you live it every day, but a lot of people it's like,
it's complicated, it's costly. I mean, if you're lucky, you don't have claims, so you're not necessarily going to see the benefit from it every year.
Yeah.
But if a crisis happens and you need it, you want to make sure you've got the cover in place and that you're covered for what you thought you were covered. So dedicate some time to it, and you'll have to do that each year because the policies renew every 12 months. But give it some time, give it some attention, speak to a broker about it, and if there's things that you think are covered, make sure you're verbalizing that so that everyone is on the same page.
Yeah.
If you've got expectations of your insurance program, you want to make sure that the broker or the agent, whoever's helping you on the other side, knows what you're thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, and that can be really difficult as well for people with time management. But you do have to just spend a little bit of time, talk to somebody. And what I've always said is, and always through my businesses, I've dealt with an insurance broker, and the reason for that is, okay, an insurance broker can cost you a little bit more than you doing it online yourself, but really with the time that you're spending doing that, you may as well have paid for an insurance broker anyway, because there's your cost versus time difference. But also, if it comes to a claims process, you just go to your insurance broker and go, here it is, like, it's your problem now. But that's essentially what happens.
You know, you call our team, and the only time you're spending on hold is as long as it takes for our receptionist brokers to grab the other person in the office and say, hey, this person's on the phone, and 5 seconds later you picked up the call. And then we might spend an hour on hold to your insurance company to get it lodged, and then each time we need to follow it up. But that's part of our role.
And I'll give everybody an example. So I had an accident last year in the car. A kangaroo jumped out in front of me. But I literally phoned you guys. One of your team picked up the phone and just said to me, take it to this place. And that was the last I had to worry about it. Like, honestly, I gave time, where I was, what happened, done. Paperwork was done, complete, everything. And for me, it meant I could get on with my day-to-day business.
And then we'll follow it up. We'll make sure things are ticking along in the background. And we hope that most of the time it is that painless for the client.
So that's, personally, I want to thank you guys, thank you at South Coast Insurance Brokers. But my advice is that a business broker for your insurance, that's definitely for ease, it's the way to go. And yes, financially you could look at a little bit more, but when you take into account cost of your time and potential losses of earnings and that sort of stuff while you're researching it, it isn't really anymore. It really isn't. All right, anyway, back to this. Are there any specific insurance requirements or regulations that may vary by industry or location?
Yeah. So the biggest one would be if you are employing staff or you engage subcontractors, you need a workers' compensation policy. That is compulsory by law. You will get fined by work cover if they find out that you have staff and you don't have a policy in place. So if it doesn't matter if they're casual or for one day, if you are paying someone or paying them in kind, you need a policy.
In kind as well?
Yeah.
I didn't realise that.
Yes, it still might make them eligible under the Workers' Compensation and Injury Management Act.
Okay, well there you go. So make sure you got that one.
So yeah, and beyond workers' compensation, then some industries have compulsory covers. So for us in insurance broking, we have to have a professional indemnity policy to give some level of protection to our clients. That's the same for accountants and other financial advisors. And then in, say, the building industry, home builders, our residential builders, have to have a home indemnity policy to give some protection to their clients if the business goes bankrupt or the builder dies during the project.
Of course, and that's really, really apt with the amount of builders which are kind of going under at the moment, leaving people trapped.
And look, the last 2 years has really highlighted some problems in those schemes in other states. There was quite a large builder over east that was working in multiple states but didn't have the cover in each state.
Really? They didn't have
so
the
yeah,
cover?
That's, workers' compensation and home indemnity have to be arranged in that state where the work's being done.
Okay. That's interesting, because I'd have thought that in that case it would have been a national policy.
Like there's different insurers that are on with the scheme in each state. So for builders in WA, it's QBE. So yeah, other states could be different insurers that you're working with, but you have to apply for each project.
Right.
So,
That makes sense. I understood the project, but yeah, not having it.
so yeah, and so that's the same for workers' comp as well. So there's a number of insurers in each state that do that, although some of the states run quite a different private scheme, public scheme. But if you have an office in WA and an office in, say, Queensland, and you've got staff permanently in another state, you'll need another workers' compensation policy in that other state.
Yeah, which I'm guessing a lot of people don't realise. They go, oh, I've got my workers' comp insurance might be from this international insurance company. It's got to cover me, right?
Yeah,
And it
no,
doesn't.
it's state specific.
Yeah. So if you're doing work and you've got staff in another state, make sure you've got compensation insurance which covers them in that other state as well. Jeez. Okay. How does this is going to be a long question, and I know the answer to this is going to be long. How does the claims process work, and what can business owners expect when they file a claim? I said before it was really, really easy for me when a kangaroo jumped out in front of me that I picked up the phone and went, here you go, and you said do that. That was my whole claim process.
Yeah, and a single vehicle motor accident, they can be that easy. Even just taking that to if you had a collision with another vehicle, all of a sudden another person's involved and we've got to coordinate more information, and sometimes those other parties aren't very forthcoming and helpful, so it can complicate things. I would like every claim to be simple, but it just isn't the case.
So if a business owner, let's say a business owner, they're doing their own insurance, they've got their own insurance rather than coming to a broker, and they suddenly have, somebody breaks into the place and trashes the building, and now they've got to go through the insurance claim process. Like how long, what sort of stuff are they going to have to do?
Yeah.
Apart from fill out all this paperwork, because there's going to be a lot of paperwork, right?
Yeah, it'll either be a phone call or it could be an online portal for providing information, or maybe you'll be sent a form that you have to physically fill out. You'll probably be expected to report it to the police, and the insurer police report number. You'll need to get photos of all the damage. If anything's been stolen, you'll have to try to substantiate that, which can be quite difficult. People don't always keep receipts for everything. For a business, you're more likely to have that information because you would have needed it for your accounting. But for a home, you certainly don't usually keep all that. But yeah, so proof, substantiation of what you've lost, you'll have to go out and source quotes to either repair, maybe it's a broken window, so you've got to get a glazier to come out, or just getting quotes to replace your goods that have been stolen. If there's significant damage to a building, the insurer will usually appoint an assessor or a loss adjuster. So that's another third party that's going to be involved, and they should be helpful, but they do slow the process down a bit at times.
Well, of course, because they've got their processes and policies that they've got to follow with as well. So it's just another person, another policy. Yeah.
But they are also experts in that, and that's what they do day in and day out. So they should have contacts for repairers and builders to get things underway, and they'll be the one reporting to the insurer and providing updates. But
that's going to be you who's sorting it out. That's not, they'll go, here's some suggestions, but it's down to the person who's making the claim then to do it all.
Yeah, you might have to be quite proactive, or it can be a long process.
So in this sort of instance where somebody's been broken into, what sort of time period do you see? If it's clear and simple, like somebody's broken in, they've damaged some stuff and they've stolen a laptop, for example, right? And that's it. What's the sort of turnaround time would you say for the claim to be resolved?
Yeah, if it's a straightforward one and you can get a quote, online even, like a screenshot of here's what it would be to buy this laptop again.
Yeah. And then there's the damage though.
Yeah. So, it depends on how proactive you are, but if you call the glazier that day to come and repair the window and you've jumped online and got the quote, potentially it could be a few days just to provide those documents, the invoices or the quotes to the insurer, and they might just say, yeah, that all looks fair and reasonable, and issue an EFT payment to settle it and just get it sorted. But if it could blow out.
That's the dream scenario. It was really, really simple.
Best case scenario, if it's straightforward.
Are any of them ever simple? Like really, the odd one is easy and the dream one, but there's always something which is a little bit, which you see.
Look, and it's so frustrating at the moment, but I suppose insurers have been having their claims cost blow out with inflation as well. So they're a bit stricter at the moment.
Yeah.
They're really looking at their policy wording to say, is this covered?
Really?
There's probably a bit of a culture change at the moment, where historically it was like, yeah, that's probably a claim, we'll just pay it and move on. And now they're looking at things a bit closer, saying, is this really covered?
And we had this during the global financial crisis as well. The exact same thing happened that year and the year after with the insurance companies were all of a sudden going, no, that isn't covered because our wording says it. So, and then it was really, really strict. It's loosened up a little bit more, and now we've had the situation we've had, and again we're back to that black and white.
Yeah, and that's where I think we can add value, because we are used to having those arguments, and that's something that I do a lot in the office. We'll be looking at the policy wording and the exact wording of what they're saying in context of everything else around it, and making that argument for why it should be paid.
Awesome.
But if you don't have a broker to advocate for you, there is also the Australian Financial Complaints Authority, AFCA. If you're having problems with your insurance company, that's where to escalate it to, and that's a free service for individuals and small business.
Okay, remember that one, because I'm going to do a shot later and we'll remember that one. Okay, final question.
Okay.
You've managed to get through, well done. Okay, final question. What are some considerations when selecting an insurance company or provider for my business?
Yeah, so
What should I look for?
I mean, the obvious one is the policy wording, because that's the terms and conditions. At the end of the day, whatever it says in the policy wording is what they will or won't pay for a claim.
Yeah.
So it might be 100 pages of boring information, but at least skim through it. Check the exclusions section for anything that seems alarming.
Don't treat it like the Apple terms and conditions.
Yeah.
You just hit I agree.
So that's part of it. Beyond that, you know, it's about their reputation and how easy they're going to be to work with if something's going wrong. So have a look at reviews. How have other people found the experience with claims? And even just in getting a quote from a company or a provider or another broker, how easy have they been to deal with, to talk to? Could you get them on the phone? Do they respond to emails? Like, if they've been difficult to get a quote with in the first instance, just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's good value.
That's a really good piece of advice, that one. If it isn't cheap, it's not necessarily good value. Love that. Love that. Anastasia, thanks for coming in today. Look, if you've got any questions at all about any of this stuff, drop it in the comments below, and I'll get hold of Anastasia, or you can literally call South Coast Insurance Brokers and they'll be able to answer the questions for you. You've got a great team there, but it's not just like, I've got to be nice and neutral here, but it's not just about them. Any insurance brokers will give you the correct information that you want, or do your research. Depends how much you enjoy it and how much time you have. So yeah, just keep on that one. But we'll see you not this weekend, the weekend after.
On the 28th of October.
On the 28th of October, so you'll be around. Come on down, be a big day anyway, but yeah, Anastasia will be here and somebody else, I'm guessing.
Yeah, Lois should be joining.
Lois as well, excellent. Yeah, and we'll have a bit of fun on that day as well. So any questions, drop it below. Hope that helps, and we'll see you in a few weeks with another one. All right, thanks guys, see ya.
Bye.